So Dr. James White asked a couple questions regarding eschatology, especially about Daniel chapter 7. Ooh, let me scroll up. Daniel chapter 7. We're going to look at Daniel 7, Acts chapter 1, and Revelation chapter 12. And we're going to find the ascension in all three of those texts. All three of those texts. The ascension of Christ into heaven after his crucifixion, death, burial, and resurrection. Then he ascended. So the ascension specifically is what we're going to talk about. Because Dr. White makes a great point. In Daniel chapter 7. Okay, you have the vision of the four beasts, verses 1 through 8. That's an earthly vision. Then we have an interlude, verses 9 through 10. Verses 9 and 10. An interlude, and this is a heavenly vision. So we got earthly in verses 1 through 8. Then we're going to heavenly in verses 9 through 10. Back to 11, verses 11 through 12 is going to be back to an earthly. We got the little horn. This is the Antichrist, was speaking great words, haughty words, blasphemous words. This is the Antichrist on earth. And then verses 13 and 14. Here we have right here a picture of, again, these are interludes dispersed throughout Daniel chapter 7. So really, this is the second interlude. And he's going to say, this is the ascension of Christ. I agree with him. He came with the clouds of heaven. There came one like the Son of Man. And he came to the Ancient of Days. Now, here's what we want to do. Road Trip, he's asked a question.
But here's a question. When does this happen? When does this happen?
Mm-hmm. Good point. Good point. So it happens at the ascension. No question about it. Here's Acts chapter 1. Notice the clouds of heaven, okay, in Daniel 7, before we get to Acts chapter 1. Verses 9 through 11, look at the heading. It just simply says, the ascension. And when Jesus had said these things, as they were looking on, he was lifted up, and a cloud took him out of their sight. So think of in the Old Testament, remember the glory cloud of Yahweh that led the Israelites through the wilderness wandering. Same thing, the Jesus ascends, he was lifted up, right? A cloud took him out of their sight, and while they were gazing into heaven, so clearly he is ascending up into heaven. And as he went, two men stood by them in white robes, said, "You men of Galilee, why you stand looking into heaven? This Jesus, who was taken up from you into heaven, will come in the same way as you saw him go into heaven." So this is the ascension. But check this out. Here's what's fascinating. Revelation chapter 12. A sign, a symbol, right, appeared in heaven. Okay? The woman clothed with the sun, moon under her feet, and on her head a crown of 12 stars. This woman symbolizes Israel. Just look to Genesis chapter 37, verses 9 through 11, and Joseph's dream. Clearly, John is taking this language and imagery straight from Genesis chapter 37, verses 9 through 11, and Joseph's dream. This woman is not Mary, as the papists assert. It is not Mary. This woman is the symbol of the church of the Old Testament, Israel. She was pregnant and crying out in birth pains in the agony of giving birth. Israel was to bring forth the Messiah. Again, another sign or symbol appeared in heaven. Great red dragon, this will be Satan, obviously, having diadems, right, royal crowns. The dragon stood before the woman, and she gave birth to the Messiah, the male child. But check it out. Her child was caught up to God and to his throne. After the Messiah finished all of his work here on earth, accomplished his work on earth, his atoning work, his propitiatory atoning work on behalf of all his people from all time, he was caught up to God and to his throne. But what happened? What happened when he was caught up? War arose in heaven. That's what happened when he was caught up to his throne. War arose in heaven. Michael and his angels fighting against the dragon, and the dragon and his angels fought back. So a war between Michael and his angels and Satan and his angels. Okay? Now, I make the argument that this war had nothing to do with spears and swords and bows and arrows and shields and all that stuff. No Abrams tanks, no Leopard 2s, nothing like that. This war was a war of argument, a debate. They were debating ideas, doctrines, propositions, or as Martin Luther called them in The Bondage of the Will, assertions. Remember what Martin Luther said right at the beginning of The Bondage of the Will? He said, look, Erasmus, you say you don't delight in assertions. I tell you that without assertions, there is no Christianity. You take away assertions and you take away Christianity. It is not the mark of a Christian heart to not delight in assertions. To be a Christian at all, one must delight in assertions. This war in heaven was a war of doctrine. A war of doctrine. Okay? But Satan was defeated and thrown down, thrown out of heaven and down to the earth. Okay, this is it. This was the finality of Satan's still kind of being able to go up to heaven and kind of come down to earth and go up to. This was it right here. The line was drawn. No more entrance of Satan into heaven. He was really thrown down. And this isn't where Jesus sent his disciples out. And I saw Satan fall like lightning from heaven. Well, yeah, he could still have access back and forth, earth to heaven, earth to heaven. Now, right here, he has no more access to heaven. Okay, thrown down to the earth. Angels were thrown down with him. And I heard a loud voice in heaven. So here's the heavenly voice. What do you think this debate was all about in heaven? Well, it probably had something to do with salvation and the power of God in salvation, the power of God in the kingdom of our God and establishing the kingdom of God, and the authority of Christ over that kingdom. Probably had to do with all these issues. Salvation, the power of God in salvation, the kingdom of God and what that means, the adoption of sinners, sinful, those who were once spiritual children of Satan, now being a part of the kingdom of God by God's grace alone, and the authority of Christ. And of course, it says Satan was accusing the brethren and accusing them day and night before our God. But the conquest had to do, the conquering of the saints isn't their conquest. They only conquer by the blood of the Lamb. It's because of his power. Solus Christus, right here. Christ alone, the blood of the Lamb. In salvation, how does the blood of the Lamb work in salvation? How about the doctrine of justification? We always say justification by faith alone, right? And that is true. Faith is the sole instrumental means by which God uses to justify a sinner. But faith is not the ground foundation of any sinner's justification. The ground foundation of a sinner's justification is the blood of the Lamb. Okay? It's the blood of the Lamb. So and by the word of their testimony. Of course, where does the word of their testimony come from? Sola Scriptura. So you got Sola Scriptura, you got Solus Christus, the blood of the Lamb in salvation, the power, Sola Gratia, the power of the grace of God in salvation to bring sinners into his kingdom and the authority of his Christ. The accusations of Satan have been just completely defeated. But yeah, war arose in heaven. War arose in heaven. So I think he asked one more thing here. I just wanted to get to this.
Hebrew scriptures and then brought into the New Testament. When is the Son of Man presented before the Ancient of Days? When Jesus was resurrected and he ascends into heaven, do you think he just sort of arrived and said, hey guys, nice to be back?
Yep. Nope. Not at all. There was a war. There was a war that arose in heaven. This is Revelation chapter 12. So those are the texts I wanted to look at, wanted to try to answer to the best of my ability, at least, my limited ability. The Ascension of Christ in Daniel chapter 7, verses 13 through 14. Okay? I'll just tell you, verses 13 through 14, Acts chapter 1, verses 9 through 11, and Revelation chapter 12, starting about verse 7, with the war that broke out in heaven at the ascension of Christ. Because after this war, this is what happens. Satan kicked out, "Woe to you, earth, for the devil has come down to you in great wrath, because he knows his time is short." And when the dragon saw that he had been thrown down to the earth, he pursued the woman who had given birth to the male child. Again, this woman was Israel, or the church of the Old Testament, but now it's the church of the New Testament. But the woman was given the two wings of an eagle, where she is to be nourished in the wilderness for a time, times, and half a time. That's that 1260 days, years, time period that did not begin until after the fall of the Roman Empire, because it's the same time period of the supremacy of the Antichrist. Okay, the supremacy and the reign of the Antichrist. So that's important to know as well from an historicist perspective. So I'm going to leave it there. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. I tried to make it somewhat short. We'll talk to you soon. Soli Deo Gloria.